My name is Eleanor Matthews, and at 73, I thought I'd seen everything life could throw at me. I was wrong. Last Christmas, sitting around my own dining table that I'd polished every week for 40 years, my granddaughter Sarah looked me straight in the eye and said words that would change everything. "You're not invited, Grandma. This is a family dinner for real family only." The silence that followed was deafening. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked loudly, each second stretching into eternity. My son Michael shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his weathered hands fidgeting with his napkin, avoiding my gaze like he used to do as a child when he'd broken something valuable. Sarah's husband Jake smirked, clearly enjoying the moment, his cold blue eyes glinting with satisfaction. Their 3 children, my precious great-grandchildren, looked confused and scared, their innocent faces reflecting the tension that had suddenly filled the room like toxic smoke. I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces, each shard cutting deeper than the last. The Christmas roast I'd spent hours preparing suddenly tasted like ash in my mouth. The cranberry sauce, made from my mother's recipe that had been passed down through 3 generations, seemed meaningless now. "What do you mean, Sarah?" I whispered, my voice barely audible above the crackling fireplace that had warmed countless family gatherings over the decades. The Christmas lights I'd spent hours hanging, the same ones my late husband Henry had helped me put up every year, until his death 5 years ago, suddenly felt garish and mocking. "I mean," she continued, her voice cold as the December wind howling outside our Connecticut home, "that you're old-fashioned, judgmental, and frankly embarrassing. We're trying to move forward as a modern family, and your opinions don't align with our values anymore. You make comments about everything, how we raise our kids, our choices, our lifestyle. It's suffocating." I thought about the mortgage payments I'd been making on their beautiful colonial house in Westport for the past 5 years. $3,000 every month, withdrawn quietly from the account Henry and I had built through decades of careful saving and sacrifice. The down payment I'd provided from my late husband's life insurance, $60,000 that represented his final gift to our family. The countless babysitting hours, school pickups during emergencies, and loans that never got repaid but were somehow always forgotten when the next crisis arose. Most painfully, I remembered teaching Sarah to bake Christmas cookies in this very kitchen when she was just 6 years old, her tiny hands covered in flour, her laugh echoing through the house as we decorated sugar cookies with rainbow sprinkles. She'd called me her favorite person in the whole world back then. "Sarah, please," Michael finally spoke up, his voice strained with discomfort, but his daughter cut him off with a sharp look that reminded me painfully of her mother during her worst moments. "Dad, we discussed this. It's time for some boundaries. Grandma needs to understand that we're adults now, and we don't need her constant interference." As I sat there, watching the family I'd sacrificed everything for turn their backs on me, something inside me snapped. Not with anger, but with a crystal-clear realization that hit me like a bolt of lightning. I'd been enabling this behavior for too long, mistaking manipulation for love, confusing financial dependency with genuine affection. The monthly mortgage payment of $3,000 I'd been quietly covering suddenly seemed like the key to a door I'd been too blind to see. I stood up slowly, my arthritis protesting after sitting in tension for so long, and reached for my purse with hands that trembled not from age, but from the magnitude of what I was about to do. The leather handbag had been a gift from Henry on our 40th wedding anniversary, and touching it now gave me strength. "I understand," I said quietly, my voice carrying a calm authority that seemed to surprise everyone, including myself. The bice me. Room fell silent again, the only sounds being the distant hum of the dishwasher and Tommy's quiet sniffling. They were all waiting for my tears, my pleading, my desperate attempts to maintain my place in their lives at any cost. Instead, I pulled out my phone, a simple iPhone that Emma had taught me to use, and made a call that would change all our lives forever. Hello, Bank of America. This is Eleanor Matthews, account number 43872951. I need to discuss my granddaughter's mortgage immediately. The bank representative, Maria Rodriguez, was incredibly professional despite it being Christmas evening. Mrs. Matthews, I see you've been making consistent payments on the Wells property at 2147 Maple Street for 5 years. You're calling about the mortgage for Sarah Wells Thompson, correct? How can I assist you today? I need to stop all payments immediately and understand my legal options, I said, walking into my living room while my family sat in stunned silence behind me. Through the bay window, I could see snow beginning to fall, each flake catching the eye, light from the street lamps like tiny diamonds against the dark sky. Ma'am, may I ask if there's been a change in your financial situation? We have records showing you've never missed a payment and your credit rating is excellent, Maria inquired with genuine concern in her voice. I looked back at Sarah, who had gone pale as winter frost. Her hands were shaking now, clutching the edges of her designer sweater, a sweater I'd bought her for her birthday last month. You could say that, Maria. My granddaughter has just informed me I'm no longer welcome in what I thought was our family home. Apparently, I'm not real family, and my presence is suffocating and embarrassing to them. Sarah jumped up from her chair so quickly it nearly toppled backward, panic replacing her earlier smugness like a mask being ripped away. Grandma, wait! You can't just... This is insane! You're overreacting! I held up my hand, a gesture I'd perfected during my 30 years as a high school English teacher, and continued my conversation with the bank. Maria, what exactly happens if I stop making payments? I need to understand the timeline and legal implications. Well, Mrs. Matthews, this is quite unusual. Since the loan is in your granddaughter's name but you're listed as a cosigner and the primary payment source, stopping payments would trigger several automatic processes. First, there would be a 30-day notice sent to both parties. After 90 days of non-payment, foreclosure proceedings would begin. However, given your excellent payment history, we might be able to work out alternative arrangements if needed. Jake had been listening intently and suddenly seemed to grasp the full gravity of the situation. His face had gone from smug satisfaction to barely concealed terror. Eleanor, let's be reasonable here. Sarah was just having a bad day, you know how it is. The holidays are stressful for everyone, especially with 3 kids. You know how much pressure we're all under. I almost laughed at his sudden change in tone, the way his voice had shifted from condescending to pleading in the span of a phone call. A bad day, Jake? This isn't about one bad day. This is about years of taking advantage of my love and generosity while treating me like an unwanted burden, like some embarrassing relic you have to tolerate. Michael finally found his voice, standing up and approaching me with the same cautious movements he'd used as a teenager when he'd crashed my car. Mom, please. Let's all calm down and talk about this like adults. There's no need for such drastic measures over a family disagreement. Adults, Michael? I turned to face my son, the boy I'd raised alone after his father died in Vietnam, the child I'd worked double shifts to put through college. Adults don't exclude their elderly mothers from family dinners in their own homes. Adults don't accept thousands of dollars in support while showing nothing but disrespect and entitlement. Adults take responsibility for their words and actions. The children were starting to cry now, sensing the tension and understanding that something terrible was happening to their family structure. 8-year-old Emma, my youngest great-grandchild, tugged on Sarah's dress with small hands that reminded me of Sarah at that age. Mommy, why is great-grandma upset? Are we moving again? I don't want to leave my school. Again. That single word hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. I realized this beautiful colonial house, the house I'd been paying for with Henry's insurance, money, and my teacher's pension, wasn't even their first home that I'd rescued. They'd lost their previous home in Stamford to foreclosure 3 years ago, and I'd bailed them out without question, believing their tearful promises that things would be different this time, that they'd learned from their mistakes. Maria, I continued into the phone, my voice growing stronger with each word. I need to schedule an appointment to discuss my options. Tomorrow, if possible. I want to understand everything, legal ramifications, my rights as a co-signer, and the process for removing myself from any future financial obligations. Certainly, Mrs. Matthews. I can schedule you for tomorrow at 10 a.m. with our mortgage specialist. Given the complexity of your situation, I'd also recommend consulting with a financial advisor. We have several on staff who specialize in financial disputes. Sarah's face crumpled, and for a moment, I saw the little girl she used to be, the one who would crawl into my lap during thunderstorms, who called me every day during her freshman year of college because she was homesick. But then I remembered her cruel words, the calculated coldness in her voice when she'd dismissed me as not real family, and my resolve strengthened. You know what hurts the most? I said, setting my phone down and looking at each of them in turn. It's not just the financial abuse, though paying $180,000 over 5 years while being called embarrassing certainly stings. It's not even the disrespect, though being told I'm not real family in my own home is devastating. I walked to the mantelpiece where photos of happier times were displayed like monuments to a love I'd thought was mutual. Pictures of Sarah's wedding, at the country club, where I'd helped pay for the reception that cost more than most people's cars. Photos from the children's birthday parties, where I'd provided not just the gifts, but often the venue, the food, and the entertainment. Images from family vacations to Disney World and Martha's Vineyard that I'd funded but was gradually being excluded from. What hurts the most, I continued, my voice growing stronger, is that I've watched you teach these beautiful, innocent children that love is conditional, that people who care about you are disposable when they become inconvenient, that financial support is an entitlement rather than a gift born from love. Michael looked ashamed, his shoulders sagging under the weight of recognition. Mom, we never meant for it to feel that way. We're grateful, Your silence spoke volumes tonight, son. When your daughter dismissed me, you said nothing. When she called me embarrassing and not real family, you stayed quiet. That hurt almost as much as her words, because it told me that deep down, you agreed with her. Here's what's going to happen, I announced, my voice steady despite the emotional storm raging inside me like a hurricane. I'm going to stop enabling this toxic dynamic that I've helped create through my own misguided generosity. The mortgage. Payments end after tomorrow's meeting with the bank. You have 90 days to figure out your finances or find someone else to manipulate into supporting your lifestyle. Sarah collapsed into the antique armchair Henry and I had bought for our first apartment, hyperventilating like she was having a panic attack. We can't afford the mortgage without you. We barely make enough to cover the utilities and groceries. Where will we go? What about the children? This is their home, their school district. Those are adult problems that require adult solutions. Sarah, problems that real families face together with honesty and mutual respect rather than manipulation and entitlement. Jake's face had gone from pale to red with anger, his voice rising to an almost shout. This is ridiculous. You're destroying 3 children's lives over hurt feelings. What kind of grandmother does that? We'll sue you for emotional damages, for breach of some kind of contract. This is financial abuse. I looked at him with the same steady gaze I'd used on difficult students for 3 decades, the look that had made even the most defiant teenagers think twice about their behavior. Jake, there is no contract. I've been making voluntary payments as gifts to my family. Gifts that can be stopped at any time, especially when the recipients make it clear they don't value the giver. And if you want to talk about abuse, let's discuss how you've all been emotionally and financially abusing me for years. Emma suddenly spoke up, her small voice cutting through the adult arguments like a knife. Great-grandma, are you going away forever? Will I never see you again? Her innocent question silenced everyone, the adults suddenly confronted with the real impact of their behavior on the children they claimed to be protecting. I knelt down to Emma's level, taking her small hands in mine. Sweetheart, I will always love you. but sometimes grown-ups need to learn how to treat each other better before they can be together again. The next morning arrived gray and cold, matching my mood perfectly. I dressed carefully in my best navy suit, the one Henry had always said made me look distinguished, and drove to the bank through streets lined with bare winter trees. I sat across from Maria Rodriguez at Bank of America, feeling more clear-headed than I had in years, despite sleeping only fitfully, my mind churning with decades of memories and realizations. "Mrs. Matthews," Maria began, reviewing my file with careful attention, her professional demeanor softened by genuine concern. "I have to say, this is quite an unusual situation. You've paid over $180,000 on this. Mortgage, never missing a payment, always paying on time or even early. Your credit history is impeccable and your account shows consistent, responsible financial management. Are you absolutely certain you want to cease all support?" "Absolutely certain," I replied, signing the necessary documents with a hand that didn't shake despite the magnitude of what I was doing. "I've been enabling a toxic relationship pattern for years, and it's time to break the cycle before it destroys what's left of our family bonds completely." Maria leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping to a confidential tone. "Mrs. Matthews, if you don't mind me asking, have you considered family counseling? Sometimes financial disputes can be resolved through mediation." I paused, considering her words carefully. "Maria, this isn't really about money. This is about respect, gratitude, and basic human decency. When someone tells you that you're not real family and you're not welcome in your own home after years of supporting them, counseling won't fix that level of entitlement and cruelty." As I left the bank, my phone buzzed constantly with calls from Sarah, Jake, and Michael. Text messages flooded in like a digital avalanche, ranging from desperate pleas to angry threats to promises of change that felt hollow after years of broken commitments. I ignored them all, feeling lighter with each step, as if I was shedding a heavy coat I'd worn for too long. Instead, I drove to my attorney's office in downtown Hartford, where I'd scheduled an appointment to discuss my will and estate planning. The winter landscape looked different to me now, not bleak and dead, but resting, preparing for renewal. Margaret Donovan had been my lawyer for 15 years, handling everything from Henry's estate to my retirement planning to a minor lawsuit, when a contractor had tried to overcharge me for roof repairs. She greeted me with concern etched deeply on her weathered face, her silver hair perfectly arranged despite the early hour. "Eleanor, Michael called me this morning in an absolute panic. He's worried you're making rash decisions that you'll regret later. He mentioned something about Christmas dinner going terribly wrong and family relationships being destroyed. He's quite upset." "Margaret, let me ask you something," I said, settling into the familiar leather chair across from her mahogany desk. The same chair where I'd sat when Henry died and we'd planned his funeral, where I'd made decisions about his estate and my future. "If your granddaughter told you that you weren't real family and weren't invited to your own Christmas dinner, if she called you embarrassing and suffocating after you'd financially supported her family for years, what would you do?" Her expression shifted gradually from concern to understanding, then to something resembling admiration mixed with protective anger. "I'd probably be sitting exactly where you are right now, looking at my legal options and protecting my future. And I'd be furious that someone had treated you that way." We spent nearly 3 hours reviewing my assets, my will, my investment portfolio, and my legal options in painstaking detail. Margaret spread documents across her desk like a general planning a campaign, each paper representing years of careful financial planning and hard work. She explained that since I'd been paying Sarah's mortgage as a gift rather than a loan, I had every legal right to stop. More importantly, she helped me realize that I actually had grounds for a civil lawsuit to recover some of the money if I chose to pursue it, though she advised against it for emotional rather than legal reasons. "Eleanor, sometimes the best revenge is simply living well and protecting your future," she said wisely, adjusting her reading glasses and leaning back in her chair. You've got excellent retirement savings, your house is paid off, and you're in remarkably good health for your age. Don't let their poor choices and emotional manipulation drag you into expensive legal battles that will only create more family drama and pain. She pulled out a fresh legal pad and began sketching out options. However, I do think we should revise your will immediately. Given this situation, you may want to reconsider how your estate is distributed. We should also look at setting up more protective trusts for the great-grandchildren's education, money that can't be touched by their parents for other purposes. By late afternoon, I was back home in my quiet house, feeling lighter than I had in years. The silence was peaceful rather than lonely, something I'd forgotten to appreciate during all those years of constant family crisis management, emergency phone calls, and last-minute financial rescues. I made myself a proper cup of Earl Grey tea using my good china, the set Henry and I had received as a wedding gift, and sat in my sunroom watching the winter birds at the feeder my late husband had built with his own hands 40 years ago. Tea. Cardinals were particularly vibrant against the snow, their red feathers bright as drops of blood on white canvas. Henry used to say that cardinals were messages from heaven, reminders that love continues even after death. I wondered what he would think of my decision, then realized I already knew. He would be proud of me for finally standing up for myself. My phone rang, interrupting my peaceful moment, and I saw Emma's name on the caller ID. My heart clenched, with both love and pain. But I answered anyway, knowing this innocent child didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of adult dysfunction. "Great Grandma?" Her small voice came through, shaky with tears and confusion. "Mommy says we might have to move away from our house. She says you're not helping us anymore because you don't love us. Is that true? Did we do something wrong? I keep thinking about what I might have done to make you mad." My heart broke all over again, but this time for different reasons entirely. "Oh, sweetheart, I love you more than all the stars in the sky and all the fish in the ocean. But sometimes adults have to make very hard choices to help families learn important lessons about love and respect." "What kind of lessons?" she asked, with the earnest curiosity that made her so special, so different from the entitled adults around her. "Lessons about treating people we love with kindness and gratitude. Lessons about how words can hurt people's feelings, even when we don't mean them to. Your mommy said some very hurtful things to me, and now she's learning that our actions have consequences, just like when you misbehave and lose television privileges. Like when I'm mean to Tommy and then he doesn't want to play with me anymore? Exactly like that, sweetheart. Sometimes when we hurt people, they need space to heal before they can be close to us again. But that doesn't mean the love goes away. It just means we have to learn to do better." 3 weeks later, reality began to set in for Sarah and Jake. Like a cold dawn after a long, dark night. Without my monthly $3,000 contribution, they couldn't make their mortgage payment. The bank had sent the first notice, official and stark, and panic was setting in throughout their household. Sarah had been calling me daily, sometimes multiple times, alternating between tears, anger, desperate pleas, and attempts at manipulation. That reminded me painfully of why I'd made this decision in the first place. I'd maintained my boundaries with military precision, speaking only briefly and calmly when she called, refusing to be drawn into emotional arguments or guilt trips that had worked on me for so many years. Michael had tried to mediate, showing up at my door with flowers and apologies, but I'd made it clear that this was between Sarah and me. He couldn't fix what he'd helped enable through his silence. The turning point came on a Tuesday afternoon when Emma called me from her school's main office, her voice small and frightened. "Great Grandma, I heard Mommy and Daddy fighting last night. Daddy said some very bad words about you, words I'm not supposed to repeat, and Mommy was crying so hard she couldn't breathe. She had to use her inhaler like when she has asthma attacks. Mrs. Peterson at school asked me if everything was okay at home because I've been sad and not paying attention in class. Are you sick? Is that why you can't help us anymore? No, sweetheart, I'm not sick in my body. But sometimes relationships get sick, and they need special medicine to get better. What kind of medicine? Truth medicine, baby. The kind that tastes terrible at first, but helps people get healthy and strong again. Like when you had to take that awful medicine for your ear infection. That afternoon, Michael appeared at my door looking haggard and defeated, like he'd aged 10 years in 3 weeks. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his usually neat appearance was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, and his hair uncombed. He looked like the struggling young man he'd been after his father died, lost and overwhelmed by circumstances beyond his control. If you're enjoying this incredible story of family drama and justice, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. You won't believe what happens next. Mom, can we talk? He asked, his voice carrying a weariness that reminded me of the difficult conversations we'd had when he was a struggling teenager, fighting his own demons after losing his father so young. Let him in, noting how much he'd aged in just 3 weeks of family crisis. We sat in my living room, the same room where I'd raised him as a single mother after his father died in Vietnam, where I'd helped him with homework at the kitchen table that was now in storage, held him through nightmares about losing me too, and celebrated his achievements from Little League victories to his college graduation. Sarah's been having severe panic attacks, he began, his hands clasped tightly in his lap, knuckles white with tension. She's barely sleeping, barely eating. The doctor prescribed medication, but she won't take it. She realizes she may have destroyed the most important relationship in her life over pride and stupidity. But there's more, Mom. Things I didn't know about their financial situation, things that make this whole mess even worse. What do you mean? I asked, though I suspected. I didn't want to hear the answer. They've been living paycheck to paycheck for years, even with your substantial help. Jake's been gambling online, sports betting, poker games, even some cryptocurrency investments that went bad. Sarah didn't know until last week when the credit card statements came and she saw withdrawals she didn't recognize. They owe nearly $40,000 in credit card debt that she never told you about, money that was supposed to go to household expenses. The betrayal cut even deeper, like salt in an already gaping wound. Not only had they been ungrateful for my help, but they'd been secretly accumulating debt while I supported them, essentially funding Jake's gambling addiction without knowing it. There's more, Michael continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Jake's been lying about his job situation too. He was fired 6 months ago for missing too much work. Apparently, he was staying up all night gambling and couldn't function during the day. He's been pretending to go to work while actually spending his days at the casino or sports bars, betting on games. I felt physically sick. Michael, this isn't about Sarah anymore, or even about the money. This is about patterns of behavior that have gone unchecked for too long. I've enabled you all to take my love and support for granted, and in doing so, I've actually hurt you by not letting you grow up and face consequences. He nodded slowly, tears gathering in his eyes for the first time since he was a child. You're absolutely right, Mom. After Dad died, you sacrificed everything for me. You worked 2 jobs. Remember those nights you'd come home from teaching and then leave again to waitress at that diner? You went without meals so I could have what I needed, put me through college when you could have traveled or enjoyed your life. And I've let my daughter treat you the same way I sometimes did as a selfish kid, like your love was guaranteed no matter how badly we behaved. I felt tears welling up. This was the first genuinely honest conversation we'd had in years, maybe decades. I should have set boundaries long ago, son. I thought I was showing love, but I was really showing them that there were no consequences for poor choices. I got a call from their bank yesterday, he continued. They're starting foreclosure proceedings next month. Sarah's talking about filing for bankruptcy, and incredibly, she's still blaming you for abandoning them in their time of need. But Jake said something that really surprised me. What did he say? He said you were absolutely right. He broke down and admitted everything, the gambling, the lies, the financial mess. He said Sarah had become entitled and cruel and that he was ashamed of how they'd both treated you. He's actually talking about leaving her if she doesn't get professional help and make this right with you. He realizes that your financial support was the only thing keeping their marriage afloat, and without it, they have to face their real problems. I processed this information carefully, feeling a mixture of sadness and vindication. Jake had always seemed like the instigator in many of their problems, but perhaps I'd misjudged the family dynamics entirely. There's something else, Michael added hesitantly. Emma has been asking her teacher about living with grandparents. She told her class that her great-grandma was the only person who ever really listened to her stories and never interrupted or looked at a phone while she was talking. She asked Mrs. Peterson if she could come live with you because her house is too sad now. My heart ached for that innocent little girl caught in the middle of adult dysfunction and financial chaos. A pawn in games she didn't understand. 6 months later, on a warm June morning when my garden was in full bloom, I was tending my roses when a familiar small voice called out behind me, "Great-grandma!" I turned to see Emma running across my lawn in a simple sundress, her hair longer than I remembered, followed more slowly by Sarah. My granddaughter looked profoundly different, humbled, tired, but somehow more genuine and authentic than she'd appeared in years. Gone was the designer clothing and perfect makeup, the artificial perfection that had masked her inner turmoil, replaced by simple jeans and a vulnerability I hadn't seen since she was a teenager struggling with her identity. "Mom," Sarah said quietly, stopping a respectful distance away, her voice barely above a whisper. "May we please talk? I know I don't deserve your time or forgiveness, but I'm hoping you'll give me just one chance to apologize properly." I studied her face carefully, searching for signs of manipulation or the entitlement that had poisoned our relationship for so long. Instead, I saw something I hadn't seen in years: genuine remorse, deep vulnerability, and what looked like real personal growth born from genuine suffering and self-reflection. "Emma, why don't you go pick some flowers for the kitchen table while your mommy and I have a conversation?" I suggested gently. As Emma skipped away happily toward my flower garden, chattering to herself about which colors would look prettiest together, Sarah's carefully maintained composure began to crack and crumble like a dam finally giving way. "I lost everything, Mom. The house, my marriage. Jake left me because I refused to admit I was wrong and get help for my behavior. I had to move in with my friend Lisa, sleeping on her couch with Emma, and I've been working 2 jobs just to pay for a tiny 1-bedroom apartment and Emma's basic needs. I'm a waitress at a diner from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., and I clean offices at night after Emma goes to bed." I remained quiet, letting her continue without interruption or judgment, giving her the space to say what she needed to say. But you know what? The worst part was, Emma stopped talking to me for 2 entire weeks. She said I was mean to the person who loved her most in the world, and she was ashamed to be my daughter. She said she wanted to live with you because you made her feel important and loved, while I just made her feel like a burden. Sarah's voice broke completely. My 8-year-old daughter had to teach me about loyalty, gratitude, and unconditional love. "And what did you learn from all of this?" I asked gently, keeping my voice neutral but not cold. "I learned that I became everything I once hated: entitled, selfish, ungrateful, just like my own mother during her worst years. I took your unconditional love and twisted it into an obligation, something I deserved rather than a precious gift given freely. I taught my children that people exist to serve us, not to be cherished and respected. I became exactly like the people I swore I'd never become." Sarah reached into her worn purse and pulled out a crumpled envelope, her hands shaking slightly, with nervous energy. "I've been saving every penny for 6 months, working 70 hours a week and eating ramen noodles for dinner. It's only $800, but it's a start on paying you back. Not just the money. I know I can never fully repay the $180,000, but the enormous debt of respect, gratitude, and love I owe you." I looked at the envelope, then at my granddaughter's tear-stained face, seeing not the entitled woman who had hurt me so deeply, but the lost girl who needed to find her way back to who she really was underneath the layers of selfishness and pain. Emma came running back with a handful of dandelions, wildflowers, and roses from my garden. "Look, great-grandma, I picked you the prettiest ones I could find. Are they beautiful? Do you think they'll make your kitchen smell nice?" As I knelt to accept her precious gift, breathing in the sweet fragrance of the flowers and feeling their soft petals against my weathered hands, I realized something profound about the nature of justice and forgiveness. True justice wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about restoration. It was about broken relationships finding their way back to health through truth, consequences, accountability, and ultimately, the precious possibility of redemption and renewed love. "Sarah," I said, standing up and brushing dirt from my knees, "would you and Emma like to stay for dinner? I was just about to make my famous pot roast with those little potatoes you used to love as a child, and I think I have some of that chocolate cake recipe your great-grandmother taught me." For the first time in years, my granddaughter's smile reached her eyes, bright with tears of relief and gratitude. "We'd love that, Mom. We'd love that more than anything in the world." As we walked toward the house together, 3 generations united by love that had been tested, broken, and ultimately made stronger through pain and growth, I knew that sometimes the most powerful gift we can give someone is the chance to face the consequences of their actions and the precious opportunity to grow from them into better people. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. This incredible story shows us that love sometimes requires tough choices, but it also leaves room for redemption and healing when people are willing to do the hard work of change.